Man.
Welcome back, listeners.
Well, it's been a minute, hasn't it? Welcome back.
Aaron and I were actually just talking right before we started on the fact that neither of us have follow-up. Not because we don't have any interesting ideas on the stuff we talked about last time, but because it's been so long since we've recorded that we really haven't thought about anything from last time.
Exactly.
So this is a brand new episode, no follow-up, clean cut from the rest.
Well,
so it's just going to be all new content.
Well, I guess I did do my homework, and I did listen to the episode before recording.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
Not today. I listened to it last week. But all I could think the whole time was, oh my gosh, I'm so crazy. This is so strange to listen to this podcast right now. So, yeah, I got nothing.
Good.
On to the new podcast. It will be reborn this day.
I will also give the fair warning that my daughter is now of kind of the toddler age. She should be asleep right now, but if you hear crying or screaming or anything in the background, I severely apologize, and I will try to edit that out and catch it if I can and stop if I notice it. But
I would also like to say that my cat is also in the toddler stage, so if you hear yowling or meowing in the background, that is also, I do apologize for that as well.
And I feel bad because I'm getting to the point, I'm sure all parents get to this point where like you watch shows or anything, or just basically you go through your life and you just get used to a small child constantly just like screaming and hitting musical toys and noisemakers and stuff. So like my wife and I will be watching like a very serious show, and it's a really intense scene, and then just like one of her toys will start singing, and like we don't even flinch about it anymore. We don't even think about it. Like, oh yeah, there's just a dog, a singing dog toy going off during this intense like fight scene in a movie. But it's all good. It's all good.
Oh man, that's crazy. I'm sorry for your movie watching habits, David. This is very unfortunate.
Everything has the captions on now.
Yeah. Always captions.
I feel bad because you just stop noticing, you stop caring because you just know it's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes like you have other people over or you're at someone else's house, etc., you just like forget how loud that actually can be and like how annoying it can be if they have that stuff. So try to be sensitive to it. But my siblings also have lots of kids and stuff, and so whenever we're over at my parents' house or whatever, like it's just a madhouse anyway. So we've all just kind of become desensitized to loud sounds.
It's a madhouse. Yeah.
But that's not the best podcasting practice. So again, I will try to be aware of any loud noises that appear in the background.
I agree. That would severely reduce my listening to our podcast if every time I listened there was a screaming child. So some
duly noted.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, should we tell them about our adventures we had the past couple weeks?
I think we should. I think it was a delightful, imaginative time.
Do you want to give the description of what happened?
Yes, that would actually be great. So to set the stage, months ago, my wife was like, "Okay, I've got your Father's Day present figured out." She loves giving gifts, and she's like, "I've got your Father's Day present figured out.
Okay.
You need to make yourself available at this time on this day for this amount of time." And it's a super secret surprise. It's the Father's Day secret surprise. And I was excited, because I love a good surprise. I love, we talked about this in movies. I love getting the information slowly and milking the excitement and the adventure and the exploration.
That's why you love Rendezvous with Rama.
Exactly. It's just
you had me read
it. Exactly. It's a wonderful feeling, and my wife is exactly the opposite. She can't keep a secret to save her life. She just loves to spoil surprises and give gifts early and all this fun stuff. And so she was doing this really nice thing by getting me a gift, which is really nice, and then giving this mystery and excitement for the future. Well, I didn't really think about it too much until the day before. The day before, I started to get that nervous feeling because she had told me, I've invited your friends. David was coming. The other David was coming. There was some other people in my family that were invited, and it was like a bunch of men going out and doing a man's activity.
Right.
And then the day before, she mentions, oh, by the way, there might be guns. And it threw me for a loop because I had no idea what she could have planned that involved guns. I was baffled and afraid.
You thought you were going to like a shooting range or something?
I thought so, yeah. And so the day arrives. I'm so anxious and nervous, and all my gut's all tight, and it's exciting. We're getting in the car. We're heading over, and as we get, she's like, "Oh, go to this certain town," and so we head towards this certain town, and we hop off the highway. And as we get closer, you can do that thing where you like, now that you're in a certain area, you can reduce the number of things it can be into a certain set of things. So I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be this or this or this. And then as we drive past the different turns we would have taken for the different places, it's none of the things I can think of.
Right.
And I'm so confused as to where we're going. And we turn the corner, and there's this big building with like this weird symbol on the side. And I was like, rec center? I guess rec centers have shooting ranges. That has guns. That would be guns. That's kind of strange, There's a lot of hype, and then I keep going. But it was less expensive than a shooting range. Bullets are expensive, and
why would you go all the way to that town that's far away from where you live?
Yeah,
to go to a rec center that you can go to any town to go to.
Right. I was baffled. Well, we turned the corner, and I couldn't read the letters because the font was so bad, but I finally understood where we were going.
And where was it, Aaron?
We were going to space camp. And I was psyched. It was amazing.
Most people would call that a space center, but yes,
okay, space center. To the space center, the space camp. I don't know. I never got to do it. This is like a thing that, like, I guess in our area, I don't know which areas of the country have one of these beautiful places, but it's like a thing you do in elementary school where you go to the space center and you do space camp. Sometimes you stay for a couple of days, and
they have planetariums and videos and courses and things like that, that you can learn all about space. But what's the main component of a space center that most people are excited about?
The main component is the simulators, where you get to be a crew of a spaceship and fly a spaceship through space and meet aliens and use laser blasters and live my dream.
Again, Aaron never did this as a child, and so you can see him reverting back to his like 11-year-old self right now. And that's exactly how it was when we were there. So can I give my side of the story up to this point?
Please do.
So your wife Facebook messaged us, a couple months ago, like you said.
Yeah.
Same thing, be ready for this day. We're going to do the Space Center with Aaron because he's never been. And honestly, my first thought was, I didn't know the Space Center was still around. I haven't done it since I was a kid, so I didn't know it was there. I didn't know you could actually book it. I thought it was only for like, field trips and stuff. So
Right.
That was really cool. And I was kind of excited because I may have mentioned this before. I teach an online school now, and I was trying to find something kind of like that experience to do with my online students, but I hadn't gone to something like that since I was like 11, so I didn't remember a lot of the details. So I was kind of excited to relive my childhood, but also get a feel of how it works and see if I could do something with my students of a similar vein. Obviously, doing online would be very different and much more limited, but I just couldn't remember what it was like because it had been so long. I remember enjoying it, and your 11-year-old memory is very tainted
Yeah, no, it's
by your impressions of an 11-year-old, you know.
useless. Useless, I think, is the right word for your 11-year-old memory.
Right. Anyway, so I was excited, and I remember my wife asking, like, how are they going to keep it a surprise, like, once you pull up to the building? And I was like, I think at that point he's expected to know. So it did make me laugh that you didn't know right away what it was, because it was still kind of a surprise until you actually could read the sign. And
yeah, it blew my mind.
anyway, so then I pulled up. You were there before us, so I felt kind of bad. It was your surprise party, and I guess you knew we were all coming. But
yeah,
I feel like everyone arrived after you, which was ironic. But
yeah. I had to greet all the different parties. I thought we were like, man, everyone else was kind of late. We were like on time, and everyone else was late. And I was like, man, the first time that I'm on time.
But we all made it, and we got ready for the simulator.
Yeah.
You wanna again? I've done it before, so I feel like we should have your description and experience of how that all went.
Well, so we were introduced to our commanding officer, and he took us into the boardroom to begin mission prep and briefing as we were about to encounter a magical experience. We got our assignments, we got all our different roles. I was given 2 roles because we were short a man because somebody decided not to show up, and so I had to do 2 jobs, and I was the pilot and the co-captain.
And just to explain, his 2 jobs were on opposite sides of the room, which made it even better. So he's constantly running back and forth between 2 computers.
I have words, a lot of words to say to the people who thought it was a good idea to put the co-pilot. What's the sub-captain called?
The first
officer. Thank you. The first officer. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to give the first officer 2 jobs or the pilot 2 jobs. Because both of those are pretty important.
And let's put them on opposite sides of the room.
Right. Yeah. And you can't control it all from one space. Now you have to go to 2 different spaces. We got our suits. We got all geared up. I was given a red shirt? I think I was given a red shirt, which was a little unnerving, but a red vest.
Can we give a little bit more detail about just all that's going on here?
Yeah, please.
So just for a visual of what this is, you go into a room that's maybe the size of a living room, and there's a whole bunch of computers there, but it has special software on it that allows you to be part of the space simulation.
Right.
And so before you go in, everyone gets assigned a job that's assigned to a specific computer that does a specific job. And so Aaron got assigned to these 2 different jobs on opposite sides of the room, which was lots of fun, right?
It was tons of fun.
But again, at the same time, everyone's wearing these vests. The computers are built into the paneling, so it looks kind of like Star Trek-y or Star Wars-like, you know, and they got blue and red lights coming down. It feels very much like you're in like a Disneyland waiting area or something, you know, that it's very well themed and stuff. I was actually impressed with how well the theming was with everything.
Yeah, I thought it looked really good.
Especially for something that's, you know, publicly funded, I'm pretty sure, and you know, made for elementary schools, you know, but they did a really good job.
It was really impressive. It's attached to an elementary school, and so I'm sure those kids have a lot of fun with their space center.
Yeah, seriously.
but I'm sure there's a little bit of public funding going on, which is good.
Right. Anyway, so that's the setup. And sorry I interrupted, but I just think of all the details for someone that hasn't seen this, what it looks like and what it feels like. But just imagine 6 to 8 computers, dimly lit room with neon type lights, and everyone's got their vests and this. Your station, what's your job, what's your duty while you're in our space simulator.
Yep. And it was you do training, you run through the software has a little training video that you have to watch, and it's like 12 minutes long. And we went through that, and I was like, the whole time I was thinking to myself, man, this is a lot of information for a 12-minute training video.
Right.
I'm going to go on an 1.5-hour adventure, and I only had 12 minutes of training, and I can't remember any of it.
The software is pretty cool. It's pretty good. Like, I'm remembering from like when I went in the 90s, or not the 90s, early 2000s. But still, back then, like, think of the graphics that were present and the style, the
Yeah.
software. Like, it wasn't that good looking, but like this software like looked like something you see in a movie. You know, like it looked really well made and had diagrams and like wireframe outlines of the spacecraft and stuff. If you're the pilot, and
Yeah.
anyways, it looked really good.
It was an incredible adventure. We got our captain. I wasn't the captain, thank goodness. My brother-in-law he took the captain's chair to redeem his elementary youth experience when he was
That's
a
right.
bad captain. Well, that's not true. He was a good captain, but his crew were a bad crew because they were kids, and kids aren't a good
Right.
crew. My crew was incredible because we were a bunch of adults hanging out.
Although we almost still lost, so
We did. I actually found out some very, very interesting things about the back end of that whole system,
likewise.
which was really, I'm glad you also did too, which was really interesting, really fun.
But should we tell them what the mission kind of was first before we dive into the details?
Yeah. I mean, what was it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm glad it was that memorable for you.
We were supposed to, right? I remember. Don't worry, I remember.
We were just geeking out over the tech. We didn't actually pay attention to what our jobs were and what we were supposed to do to survive the simulator.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's a brand new simulator. Come on, you go to a laser tag and you shoot the laser gun a couple times before you know you got to figure all that stuff out. But our mission was to take our spaceship and go with a convoy of other spaceships to a remote part of space and do one of the other spaceships was equipped with a weapon that we needed to test, and then bug out and get home, and that was all good, right? And then of course it wasn't all good. One of the ships was attacked, one of the escort ships was attacked, and
we had to save them from losing life support before they ran out of air, and we did so with like 5 seconds remaining or something.
Yeah, something crazy small of my brother sitting over there hitting buttons and going, come on! And I'm sitting over there going, come on!
And at the same time, I should have mentioned this, I was the person that did scanning, like seeing where asteroids were and other ships, so
yeah,
a lot of times when it was like really high intensity stuff, I was just like sitting there because like you guys already know there's a ship next to you that you're trying to save.
Right.
So I felt really bad. I couldn't do anything during the high intensity moments. And your poor dad, he was in charge of all the repairs.
He was the engineer, and the engineering system was giving him grief. He was like, I can't understand it. It's supposed to do this and it's supposed to do that. It's not working. And
he said like everything had 11 steps there. You had to like have me do something, to have your nephew do something, to have him do something. Like
right.
Seemed like super crazy. At the same time, I'm just sitting there like, nope, we're still clear. We're still clear. Everything's good.
Don't see anything. Oh, you want me to build something? Oh, never mind. I guess we don't need to build anything.
Anyway, so we brought that ship back safely in the nick of time.
Yep.
They survived
the crew, but the bad guys took off with the weapon, and so we had to go get the weapon back. We got sent. We almost crashed into the space station because apparently when you lock onto a coordinate to go somewhere, you lock onto the thing that you're aiming at. So
the actual object.
Right. So, I almost hit a defense station at warp speed. So that would have been interesting.
The general or the captain, whoever it was a little TO'd at you. So.
He was very grumpy. But we didn't crash. He told us to go get the weapons back, or at least by any means necessary, keep it out of the hands of the enemy. And so we did just that. I had to play asteroids.
Yeah, that was kind of
to
fun.
Get us through a minefield. That was
that one still looked like it was from the 90s, but
it did. Unfortunately, it did.
Little 2D screen with little asteroids, little very pixelated asteroid pictures that Aaron had to drive us through.
Oh man, it was bad. And then when I started to go, when you have a game, when you play in space, sometimes there's a stabilization system so that your craft doesn't keep going in the direction you spin it. Usually in space, you decide I'm going to go this way. You'll keep going that way until you decide you have to put thrust in the opposite direction to stop going that way. Well, that was happening, and it was making it very hard not to run into all the asteroids. Not to mention I almost crashed at the very beginning because I thought I was in the bottom right, but the exit was in the bottom right, and the ship was in the top. So I'm like throttling forward, and I'm like, it's not moving. Uh-oh. That was fun. Got us through the asteroid field, and then we were sneaky and snuck the weapons off of the other ships just in the nick of time, and then
they saw us.
Yeah, they were pretty grumpy about us taking the weapons back, so they were gonna mess us up.
So we just shot the weapons at them.
Yeah, they were like planet destroying torpedoes or whatever, and we were just like, take them back, but take them back while they're armed. And it worked great. So we blew it up, and everything went dark, and they were like, kick A, we're out of time for your guys' simulation. But
I assumed we just lost because all the lights shut off.
All the lights shut
blew
off.
Up.
Right,
blew up with the weapon.
Right, we're dead. Yeah, we shot a massive bomb at a ship that wasn't that far away from us, and we probably didn't make it. Then we went through all the things, and he was like, you know what? Your shields are still reading at 12%. Like, we survived. We were like, yeah, we survived. We completed all mission objectives. And it was we were an excellent crew. Excellent crew. We got our picture taken and everything. Yeah, that was
a great day.
It was at the Space Center. It was a good day. I was getting my marathon in, running back and forth between the two chairs. So we completed our mission, and it was a fabulous experience. Great time with my buddies. I would recommend it if you know of one in your area. Give it a try on a Saturday. It's fun times, and it was relatively inexpensive. It was.
Yeah, I mean, considering the number of people.
Yep.
It probably would have been about the same to go to the movies, maybe a little bit more, but
yeah.
If I remember the pricing, yeah, it's less than going to like an escape room. If you're
yeah.
those and...
I went to one of those and I was like, "What? You want me to pay that? Like $50 per person? What?"
For like an hour,
Yeah.
This was like 2.5. Well, part of that was training and stuff, but
yeah,
definitely for how long you're there and the experience, it's at least in our area, was definitely worth the money, I would say.
Yep. It was a good time. And we had a lot to talk about. We talked about a lot of stuff after at lunch. We went out to lunch afterwards, and we had a lot of interesting observations about how their whole system works.
Indeed. I was going to say, should we dive into that? Because I've done some exploring. It sounds like you have as well.
I just heard what my wife told me. I haven't dug into it, but yeah.
Well, and again, I'm interested in doing something similar, which is why I dug a little deeper. But...
Okay, yeah. No, I think we should, and I think you should take the lead.
Okay. So my first question is this: they had an employee. They basically had two people with us at all times, two employees.
Mm-hmm.
One was actually in the room, and he basically was trying to imitate Scotty from Star Trek. Was what I was trying to.
Was he Scott? Okay, yeah. He was Dr. Bones. Was my takeaway. The whole thing was very Star Trek themed. Like, if you've watched Star Trek, it was Star Trek. All the characters are the same.
In fact, some of the videos they played while we were doing it are from Star Trek.
Yeah,
I don't know how they got away with copyrights with that, but sometimes they literally show the Voyager getting pulled into a tractor beam, and or the Enterprise. I mean, the USS Enterprise going into the tractor beam.
At one point, my dad was like, Battlestar Galactica, huh? I was like, oh.
Yeah, so they were pulling clips all over the place and music from all over the place. And I was like, I'm not sure how they get away with this. I think they're just hoping no one
cares.
Says anything. Or because it was built so long ago, originally, they just kind of got grandfathered into a lot of stuff or something. But
Right. And
or
so
they bought it a long time ago. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, the computer guy was like Scotty.
Well, so
the
computer guy played the role more of Scotty,
right?
But the guy that was actually in the room sounded more like Scotty. He actually had a Scottish accent and everything.
Right. But he acted like Dr.
He acted like Dr. Bones.
Right. If you've seen the new Star Trek movies, yeah,
Yeah. And anyways, I don't know a ton about Star Trek, but
Me neither.
that was my field.
Yeah.
Anyways, so this is my question for you that I was trying to determine.
Okay.
The computer guy that wasn't in the room just through mics, his name was Raljit, right? And he had kind of like an Indian accent. And,
Yeah.
but I'm convinced that every voice we heard was just that one kind of lanky, nerdy guy that actually gave us the tutorial before we went into the room, like assigned our positions, everything.
Your suspicions, David. Your suspicions. I have insider information because my wife was able to stay, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come? Like, you want to hang out and watch?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And so she got to go into the back room.
Oh, did she stay the whole time? Or?
She didn't stay the whole time. She only stayed for a few minutes.
Okay.
But she got to see the operation of how it works.
That's cool.
It is exactly what you thought.
Okay. I was very suspicious.
That one kid is all the voices that we heard through the computer and all the communications we had. It's that one kid.
So all the general, the bad guys, they're all just that voice.
I thought he did marvelously well.
Yeah. Well, they definitely use some kind of vocoder so that he can like change his voices and etc. But like, he was doing accents and stuff too. So like, he did a really good job. I mean, obviously he had some tech with him, but it'd be hard to jump into those roles while also running a lot of the stuff from the back end.
Right. And that was the most surprising thing that I heard from my wife was that there wasn't anyone else really. There was just him.
Right.
And I think he had a supervisor with him that was like, I don't know, prepping him for evaluation, or I don't know. She had a clipboard, so that's all that mattered.
Right. Clipboard means you're the supervisor.
She might have done some assistance as well, but I think he was mostly in charge of running the whole operation downstairs. Or I don't know if it was actually downstairs, but
right. Well, and there's one time that there was like, just like at the beginning we were in the docking bay, there was like a girl voice.
Oh, really?
Well, I could tell it was like a high pitched voice. I think it was trying to be a girl, but I'm like, that's got to be a guy with some kind of like voice changer.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I was first suspicious that they had a voice changer, because it didn't sound like a girl, it sounded like a guy. But after that, everything sounded different, you know. So I was like, but I think it's all still that same guy. You know. So.
What tipped you off? Why? I mean, like, I guess there's some obvious whys. What tipped you off to that there was only one guy down there? I wasn't sure. I was never sure until my wife told me. I had suspicions, but then like with all the different voices and all the different things that were going on and the different actors, and I was like, oh man, there must be more people down there. Like there must be at least 2 or 3 at least running the show.
I think I had the same feeling. Like maybe a supervisor's helping him, or maybe there's a couple people down there. But I think I was suspicious when there was the 2 villains having the because the one villains that stole it were trading it to someone else, and they were having this conversation. There was always this like pause in between when the 2 were talking to each other. So like someone would say something, pause, then the other one would say something. I think he was changing his vocoder settings in between, so that sounded like it was 2 different people having a conversation. And that's when I was suspicious, because if it was 2 actors, they could just go at banter back and forth. But
that's fair. I didn't notice that, probably because like I assumed that I just chalked it up to like, oh, we're listening in on communications. You know, of course there's going to be a little bit, there's a little bit of a delay with Discord. Why is there not a little bit of delay with their communication? But that's an interesting thing that's interesting.
Basically, the person that's in the room is just there to make sure like you understand your job and you're doing it right and can help you if you have questions, type thing.
Yeah.
But essentially the whole system was ran on the back end by one person. And that's something I confirmed digging in.
Okay, yeah.
One person basically can run what's called the flight deck actually on the back end.
Okay, yeah.
The entire flight deck or flight core, something like that.
Right. Well, the pieces clicked into place for me when my wife told me that it was only one person back there. A lot of pieces clicked into place of why the system wasn't responding the way I expected it to.
Right.
So we would be doing something. There was one point where we were traveling through space. It was a big hustle to keep the tractor beam going and keep everything, just right to keep this other vessel in tow. And we started getting the call outs that, hey, we're headed towards the space station. We need to full stop soon. And so I'm the pilot, right? So I run over and I hit the full stop button. and nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, well, just give it a second. The doctor said to just give it a second, so I'm just going to give it a second. And then it was like more call outs for distance decreasing towards this space station. And I kept hitting the full stop button, and I kept going, why aren't we stopping?
Right.
Or another.
Well, one of the problems was the computers just had a little bit of delay too. But
yeah. Occasionally
they were a little bit laggy.
Yeah. Occasionally there was delay, and my wife actually told me that at one point in that back control room, the supervisor was like, "Oh, I think they're at full stop," and the guy was like, "Oh, okay." And I think he had to actually change something manually, and I was just like, "This explains all of the frustration that all of us are having with the system of like." If they have to actually do something.
Right. Here's the interesting thing. How much of the system do you think is manual?
I think a lot of it. After I either think a lot of it is manual or they need a much better computer running the system. That's my two thoughts, is because it was not responsive enough to be a well-running system. A well-running system,
Right.
like I've played a lot of video games, and like a well-running video game handles anything you throw at it.
Right.
Unless it's laggy and underpowered, or you're waiting on your teammates to do stuff.
So I guess
tell me,
how do you want me to expose the magic, or do you want to?
Yes, expose the magic. Now I want to know. I guess now it's time for me to know.
Okay, so first of all, the lag.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why the system's probably laggy is it actually all runs through a client server setup.
Okay.
So just like you visit a website, it gets information back and then it updates on your screen for the client. So your system's actually not running on that computer. It's running from some server in the building, right?
Okay.
That's the only way all the systems can be communicating, is they're communicating to the same central server.
Right. That makes sense.
It's all through just, standard JavaScript, etc. So if the server is taking a second to process something that needs to go out to everyone's consoles,
mm-hmm.
That's where some of the lag can be, because it's waiting for just standard internet packages and stuff. So because it's not all local on the machine, I think that's where some of the lag came from. The server connection between all the systems. Not to mention the person who's controlling the flight core, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And they're sending updates to the server, which then needs to send it out to all the systems. So the server's probably not super expensive, it's just not running, a million computers or something, it's probably something, right. It's probably just one like little desktop computer. It's probably not designed for all of this, which is why it's probably lagging a little bit.
That makes sense. That makes some sense. I guess a combination of things would probably cause that. My thought against that, like my counter thought is like, well, but like I play online games, like I play Overwatch, and that's a bunch of people all over the place interacting with a server system, and I personally don't experience lag.
Right, but it's not running from a desktop that's also trying to be an internet server. And it also could be that because they knew they're only going to use it for this, that the actual consoles may be really minimal software because it's only running an internet browser. That could also be it.
Right. Which that explains a lot. Like the combination of both things of like it's running through, and then the addition of a server. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense why it would have been the way it was.
Right. Okay, so that's how it runs. So basically, the system, if anyone's interested, is called Thorium. It's actually a really well-designed setup. It's open source, so anyone can download it, use it. But yeah, basically, so you start up your server, you connect computers to that server, and when you connect the computers, you just basically say, I want them to be the first officer, I want them to be the pilot, I want them to be, etc. And then all the computers come up with their standard console.
Okay.
But here's the crazy thing. To start, almost nothing in there is actually automated.
Really?
You're pressing a bunch of buttons, and those send signals to the server, or to the the flight core that's actually running it.
Yeah.
But if you don't put in anything, you just get information. So and so press this. So and so press that.
No.
Right.
But Oh, okay.
For the Space Center, they're not just running straight blind. That would be
Right.
impossible, right?
Right.
One person trying to respond to everything. So you can set up like automatic responses
Okay.
and automatic, I don't know how to explain it. Basically little cards that you can say, if so-and-so does this at this point, do this to their screen or whatever. So you can actually like pre-configure the whole mission of like, this is what the map looks like.
Okay.
This is where the ship's going to be. I want them to have a countdown of this much time for life support, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So all those pieces, all the videos that played, the asteroid game you played, etc. Those can all be pre-programmed into the system.
Right.
So that it knows what your mission is, and if certain people are doing certain things, it will do certain things to the console. So like for your example, your dad was repairing a bunch of stuff because they probably just had cards that said like, if damage gets to this point, disable this system. You know, if damage gets to this point, disable this system. And if this system gets disabled, do a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of pre-configuring they have to do that says what happens when this happens.
Okay.
And so that's where a lot of the setup comes and prevents a lot of stuff for the person actually running the show.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Which is like the core of the core of automation is like, if so and so does this at this time, I will respond in this way. That's what makes like.
But it's not built into the system. That was the interesting part. Like,
right, they had to build it from the ground up for any of the automation.
Right. Well, and just things like some things are automatic. Like if I built something on my screen, it automatically went to your nephew's screen because he could send them out with torpedo shoot or whatever, you know. Like that stuff's automatic. But like, for example, you typed in coordinates of how to get to that starship or whatever.
Yeah.
I've actually looked at the back end. There's literally a button that says so-and-so has asked for coordinates. And it just says send random coordinates on the back end.
No. Oh, that makes me grumpy.
So
those coordinates were a pain in the butt, man. I had to type in like 5 numbers per coordinate.
Right. And that's literally all they had to do on their end was just, okay, yeah, this is where it's actually going to be, I guess, is whatever the random coordinates are.
It spent like...
Because I was curious, because remember you mistyped the name the first time?
Yeah,
but your coordinates showed up? Because the guy realized I mistyped it. He just probably sent you the same coordinates again.
That was another clever trick that tipped me off to the fact that there wasn't really that much automation going on, because every time the training system, anytime that it brought up, oh, you have to type something in here, they always put this little addendum of like, don't worry if you don't know how to spell it, or don't worry if you don't know what it is.
Right.
The computer will help you. Right.
Which also makes sense if you're working with elementary school kids a lot. They probably might have difficulty with some of that.
And I was sitting there going, this text analysis software is great. You know, it knows exactly what I was thinking.
Like, how in the world do they know? I typed in ETA for like estimated time of arrival. I was like, how in the world's it gonna know what that means? And sure enough, it's just the guy on the back end seeing what you're reading and then sending the right response.
Right, which just, I'm like, that's kind of cheating. I thought it was cooler than it was.
Yeah, so again, it's a really well designed system, and I think they pre-configure a lot of things so that it's not the person running everything.
Right.
But what I kind of found is like most of like the mission itself is automated, but not like the responses to what we do.
Yeah.
Which again makes sense if you're working with elementary kids. You know, you can't just rely on them completing tasks perfectly. And apparently you can't rely on us completing tasks perfectly because we messed up a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. Well, and like the core of the system is like at one point it was like, we need to save these people. What are we going to do? And then it's like, how could they have planned for the automation of something so complicated as a room of 7 people trying to figure out different options of what to do?
Right.
Obviously there's only a couple of options, but it's like, how could they prepare for that? They couldn't have. They have to have some other human reaction.
Right. Well, and things like, not to downplay the contribution of your other friend, David. There's another David that is also his friend.
Yeah, other David.
But I'm pretty sure he kept calling the ships on the wrong frequency.
I think he did.
Sorry, other David, if you listen, but I'm pretty sure you kept putting there was always two numbers on the screen, and I was always really confused.
And they never matched. Yeah, there was always an outgoing call and an incoming call, and neither of them were the same. But they were able to compensate for that. They were able to just say, okay, well, we're just gonna connect it.
Yeah,
because there's a human on the back end doing troubleshooting for the whole operation.
Right. Do you know if he listens to the podcast? Do I need to edit that out?
I don't know if anyone listens to the podcast. So for right now, I'm just talking to an empty room and you, my friend. So
anyways, other David, if you are listening, to be fair, I didn't do anything the whole time. So you probably had a harder job than I did.
Well, and you know what was also funny? Thinking of shortcomings that we personally had during the operation. As pilot, I was supposed to punch in, we're leaving for the mission, right? We're supposed to go meet up with all these other ships at this certain place. And so we're supposed to punch in I punched in the coordinates and I hit enter, and then I throttle up to full warp or whatever we were going to do, warp 5 or however fast we were going to go. And I walked back over to the first officer's chair where it actually shows the destination of where we're headed. And it said no target. And I was like, uh-oh, we're just headed in some random direction. Right. And I'm like, I start like running back and forth. I was trying to keep it down on the down low so that no one knew that I was like, we're not going anywhere in particular, just so everyone knows. It was silliness.
The way I kind of think of it in my mind is just like, it's the work of like a very skilled dungeon master.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's like D&D to the next level. I don't personally play D&D, but
right.
Dungeon master obviously has to be very capable to adapt to whatever the people are doing in the room.
Right.
Just take that up like 2 levels, and that's what this system is.
Right. Well, it's being a dungeon master, but I know you don't play D&D, and so it's like I've only played a little bit, but it's D&D is very much turn-based of like, let's all talk about something and then we're going to give our answer, or I'm going to do this thing. And then the dungeon master looks at the next person in line. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then you get to combat situations and it's okay. Now everyone has a turn and then order that we're supposed to go in for combat. And so it's you're going to go and you're going to go and you're going to go. And then the bad guys are going to go. And so it's like more structured, but in the Space Center, it was like, okay, here's 7 computers that can all talk all at once to mission control, and one guy who's supposed to run the dungeon master's job and keep tabs on everyone else all at once. I
also play the voices of the villains and the general and Raljit, who's trying to help us. And...
Right, exactly. It was just. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that it's done that way and that he's given such a monumental task to complete, because it feels like if I was on the other end of that thing, I'd be like, oh, this is a lot for me, man. I don't know if I want to do all of that.
Right. Which is, again, I would love to see how much you can pre-configure. Because, again, right. I've only seen a blank slate and I just go, oh, like this would take forever. But once you've pre-configured it, I would love to see how much he is actually, how much is him pulling the strings and how much the system's taking care of. But still, the fact that he's doing any of that is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we might actually be able to get in on that.
Yeah.
If we go again. Because I was talking to the other David, and the other David is all game for getting another group together of different people and going again. So.
Right.
Maybe I'll bring you along, and you can be our shepherd, our parent, and you can just go on the back room and take notes for your eventual automation, your own space center that you're going to make.
Well, see, and that's kind of what deterred me from, because initially I was like, if it's open source, I'm just gonna set up my own thing and just do it through like Zoom with my own server and stuff. But
yeah,
when I saw how much back end stuff there was, I was like, oh, I barely can keep track of the kids while they're on Zoom, let alone trying to like run all this, and especially if I won't be able to be there, like to run their screens and help them with that. Like,
yeah,
forget it. So that's why I kind of dismissed the idea of doing this exactly.
Okay. Have you found any alternative solutions? Have you looked into any alternative solutions?
I have. Not nearly as cool and probably not relevant to the podcast, but you can create like open 3D environments and stuff that students can interact in, which are kind of cool.
Oh, interesting.
gonna go more that route and just not try and run a whole space center from
Right.
my computer.
Right. You know? Right. Well, then that makes sense. Don't worry, that makes sense. It seemed like a lot of work, and it's one of those things where it's like after having gone through it, I have this like urge to be like, you guys are doing it wrong. Like I want to come fix your automation so that it's actually like responding how someone would expect it to respond in all the situations. And but
so here's the issue, and this is save the world, right? Like,
right.
I guess first of all, problem well solved, right? Space centers.
Yeah.
Can we agree
that? Yeah, it brought back childhood magic that I never got to experience, and that is well solved in and of itself. But
right,
the opportunities for team building and for growth and for exploration, like it's truly limitless.
Right. Well, and everyone I've talked to that's been to the Space Center always remembers it. They remember what position they were, or at least they think they remember the name. You know, and
right.
It's always a memorable thing. Like, it's just one of those, like, at least around here where everyone goes, it's just one of those coming of age experiences, I guess, that everyone has.
Yeah. Except me. Yeah.
Except Erin. And my wife, apparently. She hasn't been.
She hasn't been? We got to get her in there.
Or I build my own space center and we run it from my living room.
From your living room. Great. Yes.
But looking at ways to improve this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the interesting thing. You can find a lot of like space bridge simulators on Steam, other PC game services, etc.
Right.
You can just search that up and there's lots of ones you can connect with people and do that. But the problem with these PC simulators you can just buy off the shelf, and play with your friends, is they're almost always just focused on like combat.
Okay.
Because that is something you can automate. When I press this button, the ship shoots that. And when I do this, the ship does that. And we need to send this signal and it goes out, to this other ship. And, so when you focus on that level of exactness, you're kind of limiting the level of flexibility in the jobs that are present.
David, you've just
does that
struck
make sense?
Yeah, you've just struck a nerve that I'd forgotten about. I was really uppity about this stuff a little while ago, but the lack of, you're right, that's one of the things that annoys me the most about video games on a regular basis, is that there's not the flexibility and there's not the freedom to just kind of, you have a problem and you can solve it in whatever way you want to.
Right.
Because you can just do whatever you want to, because it's a free open world environment, but I've never played a video game that's like that. The closest I've ever gotten is the Space Center, where it's like, there's a problem. Somebody do something, and
right. Well, and again, designed for elementary age kids as well.
Yeah.
You need that flexibility to be able to handle the way they try and solve the problem.
Right.
And I guess you could also say that also teaching them that combat is not always the answer.
Right.
Blowing up the other ship is not always the answer to the problem.
Right. Well, and it's fun. Like combat's great and all, but it's
not the experience of the simulator, the cooperation piece that's needed.
Right. Well, and even I don't know, even automated combat, like in video games, enemies behave a certain way, and I can exploit the way the enemy behaves to my advantage. They will do this and they will do that. They never surprise me. It was like I played one game where the game was called Crisis, and it was great. It was great fun. But the enemies, at the beginning, the enemies are not scared and taunting you and really eager to fight you. And then as you continue through the game and as, they hear about you and they try to start responding to you in the storyline, the enemies never changed. They never exhibited any fear or any different kind of tactic for attacking me. It was always the same attack and always the same brash, I'm going to kill you. There was never any like fear of like, oh my gosh, I don't know who this is. I'll appear in front of them after being cloaked, they don't run screaming, you know?
Right.
And it's like, why don't you just run screaming? Like, why are you not terrified? I just blew up a helicopter and you're just standing there shooting me like nothing happened. You know, it's like
right.
enemies.
They don't exhibit natural behaviors.
Right. Or adaptive behaviors in any way.
Right.
And so even in the limited scope of combat, I find this lack of fresh, real, real world situation, real reactions and real people on the other end of it who will respond in a way that is unique and something I didn't expect and actually clever.
Right.
Instead of the same run behind that barrier, poke your head out so that I can shoot you. You know, it's just not, it lacks that engaging aspect of having the flexibility and being attacked flexibly.
Right.
In a way that's interesting. So I agree 100% that's what traditional media lacks.
It's funny that you should mention that because actually those are the video games I do like where the behavior is exact, like really old video games.
Oh, yeah.
I'm basically just learning the pattern and then I beat the game when I can match the pattern exactly. Like I love those types of games.
Okay,
I'm gonna jump on this, then jump. Anyways, which is fine. It's just funny that we have a difference in opinion there, which is why I'm...
Yeah.
Some of the newer games that are coming out, I'm like, this is too... advanced.
They're too smart.
I don't have time for this. I can't learn this pattern. It's too out there. Anyways.
And there's a lot of joy to be had. There's a lot of, peace and enjoyment to be had when you're playing games where it is predictable. That there is the rigor and the routine and the learning a certain thing does have its own set of joy and its own enjoyment in it. But at times, especially in like an open world game or in a big flexible game or a game that is like, oh, you can do whatever you want. You can be as flexible as you want to be.
Right.
That's when it feels like I don't have options and I don't have problems that are interesting to solve. I have the same set of bad guys and the same tools to attack these bad guys and the same reaction out of them as soon as they are getting attacked. And it's just...
Right.
You told me there would be fun, there would be flexibility and excitement, and I have nothing. I have the same. I have Mario jumping.
And now you have the Space Center that has to do that for everyone in the room.
Right.
Have the flexibility for everyone in the room and how they're responding. That takes it to another level.
Right. And I think I would be interested to see how it works with a bunch of kids, because I'd be curious to know if a bunch of kids would think less on their toes.
Right.
Because I feel like a room full of adults is a much bigger challenge to overcome for the operator, for the flight deck.
Right.
Because
all the kids are just, hey, let's shoot them down. Okay. Yeah.
Right. You need to do your job. Okay, I'm going to do my job. Everyone look while I do my job. And
it's true.
Instead of like all of us are trying to solve the problem, each with our own set of tools.
Of course, they might also be like, have way better ideas of actually how to solve the problem because they have no idea what they're doing.
That's true. That's true.
Because they have no like preconditioning on how to solve it. They could just have like amazing ideas that we never would have thought of.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. We'll have to see. We should just go sometime and see if they'd let us observe.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a fun little.
Say we're doing an academic study or something.
Ooh,
yeah. You get permission.
Ooh, yeah. We could get dressed up in suits. Oh, I guess not suits. Polos. I need a polo. Then we could both go in polos and khakis. Oh, that's the right attire. Yep. And clipboards. Gotta get some clipboards. That's how you know if someone's official. If they got a clipboard, they're doing their job.
It's true.
Because no one carries around a clipboard for fun. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm right.
You're good.
And that's all.
So it is a problem well solved. I think it fits a very specific role.
Yeah.
But again, that failure point, or not failure point, but just that heavy requirement of always having someone that is trained to run the back end.
Yeah.
Makes it very limiting. That's why they have to do it in these specific buildings with these computers that, they have the equipment and everything, and they train people, and they have a supervisor with a clipboard that makes sure you know how to do your job. And
Right. And they have a doctor who comes into the room and who seemingly knows everyone's job, even though he was just a medical doctor, you know?
right. So in that way, it's a very like lots of upfront setup, lots of upfront cost, which makes it hard to expand.
Yeah.
In fact, the guy that kind of runs the open source is working on a project right now that is trying to, sounds like he's making like a paid version that hopefully incorporates even more automation into the system. I think it was something, if you're, still working with little kids, you might always need someone in the back end, running it.
Yeah.
That seems really hard to avoid. But so I think this is really far down the road, but I would love to see, I think we've mentioned AI Dungeon on this podcast before.
We have. I haven't looked into it, but we have mentioned it, yeah.
There's a lot of systems now that are like AIs are just learning how to even just like tell stories based on people's responses. AI Dungeon is a system where you basically can play a D&D type story, but it's all just a artificial intelligence that is determining the situation and what happens when you do certain actions based on just all this training data it learned on. So can you imagine if you use that for all the, search bar things and all the how to respond to different actions? And it might be interesting if one day we could incorporate that into the system so that takes even more off the back end piece for the person running the show.
Yeah. No, that's a really clever idea, because as we were talking about it, I was thinking about it, and the only solution I can think of is like, well, if you just add more people into the back end, like if you put people into the back end, or a true artificial intelligence, like a true being of computer.
There's a new word for it they're starting to use. I think it's an artificial general intelligence, AGI. That's the new buzzword.
AGI.
Artificial general intelligence.
Okay. Because they started to use AIs for like the specially trained,
right? For the one that can
systems.
Determine if it's a cat or not. That's
right. That's
can also be called an AI. So AGI is like iRobot style.
Right.
I'm a robot that acts like a human.
The scary kind, yeah. The world-ending kind, the Skynets of the future.
Yes.
Be careful, everyone. AGIs are dangerous. Be careful. It's the plot of every really interesting AGI film. Like every film that incorporates some sort of human level intelligence in a computer, a lot of them take over the world and destroy the world. So be careful.
But this one in the back room of the Space Center would not be taking over the world. It would just be helping small elementary school kids to enjoy a cooperative experience.
So then, interesting, to build on that, would you assign one per computer, like one per role? Or do you think you could make it work because with 7 human data inputs, I guess it's still controlled to some degree.
Yeah, it would still just get them one at a time and know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, you could theoretically train separate tasks, but I think it'd be better just to train the whole system as one single AI.
Interesting.
And again, can I just mention the fact that it's hilarious that every single time you come up with a person-based solution and I always come up with a tech-based solution. You're far too trusting of people.
And you're far too trusting of computers.
Because I'm the one that controls them.
Judgment Day, man. It's coming. The Terminators.
If you want to beat the apocalypse, you have to be the programmer that makes the apocalypse.
Fair. Okay. No, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah, we do tend to rely. Well, that's because sometimes I don't quite trust computers to know what they're doing. I mean, I guess I can see the AI working for the Space Center situation because there's only a controlled number of inputs that you can have. I guess that's how life is, though, isn't it? You only have so many inputs you can put into life to get certain results. It's like every problem only has so many solutions. I mean, even if I'm at work, there's only so many things that we can do to fix something,
right?
Or to build a cabinet. There's not an infinite way to solve the problem, and there's definitely not an infinite number of efficient, good ways to solve the problem,
right?
And so,
well, even imagine like you took one of the PC game simulators that's mostly combat based, but you wanted to add more story components to it. even if it was just text based, could the AI come up with what the villains are saying based on the scenario? Could it come up with like you typed in a word and it knows generally what you're looking for information wise? It gives you an option of what action does your team want to do, and you just type in the search bar or type it into the input bar. Maybe it has a list of like 15 different scenarios that could occur, but it knows based on what you typed, like which scenario to send you into next. You might have something that's fully automated, but the AI can kind of take your free form responses and direct what path you're trying to take.
Interesting.
In that case, you wouldn't even need a back-end person.
Right.
Again, if it was more adult-based and something you're just doing with your friends online type thing.
Right.
Still be hard with elementary kids when they just
train kids to learn.
They accidentally hit the keyboard and it just has a bunch of random symbols.
Right.
They enter that as the input. It might struggle.
Nah, it'd just give an answer, wouldn't it?
It's true.
It'd say,
you want to attack?
Great, good choice.
With your little ship and fight the giant spaceship? Okay, go for it. But you see what I mean, though? Like, if you could eliminate that need for a person to respond to the open actions, you eliminate a lot of difficulty for the person running the show.
Right. Or
again, if you kind of work the other direction, you can add a lot more freedom into something that's already completely automated.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So I'd love to see that go down that line.
Yeah.
I think we will soon, actually, to be quite honest.
Okay. I'm interested, but I feel like this feeling of like I don't have any idea how well the computers handle stuff like that. I'm really curious about this AI dungeon kind of thing, because the crowning reason I was interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons was because of the sheer flexibility that you have for the story, and just that ability to be blindsided, and that ability to say, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this crazy thing right now.
Right.
And we're going to see if it works. And it's like, I could never have used the equipment like that in a video game.
Right.
And so I'm very curious to know about this AI dungeon and to see if it's...
You should just give it a go and report back how it goes. Because I think you'll be more surprised than you realize at how good it is.
Okay. Because it feels so... Like, I understand intellectually that it could handle all the information. And like eventually it can gain an understanding or some kind of reactionary, not an understanding, but it can gain a reaction system based on what I give it. But how good can it be? Like, what if I just throw like random crap at it? Like I'll play it. I'll give it a good thorough test. I'll play it once and then I'll test it once and see if I can. See if I can mess it up pretty badly and see where its shortcomings are.
Okay, I'm really excited because, again, I kind of know that field, so things like this don't surprise me. I think you'll see what it does understand about the world, and you'll kind of flip out at how good it actually is.
Okay. That's it's very interesting, and it's very scary too. It's like it's nervous making to think that if you can replace a dungeon master to some degree, that's where I start to feel like, oh no, man, you're headed towards real. Like that's like now you're really automating something that has a lot of inputs and a lot of different stuff going on inside of it. And if it can be creative, like that's the other part that I'm interested in is like if I play it 100 times, will I start to get bored with the different scenarios that comes up? But maybe not, just because counter argument to that is that every movie has the same plot anyway, so like will I get bored? No, I probably won't.
you find that like every single movie is based off of like the same 12 Shakespeare plots, just varied in different ways.
Exactly. It's just there's not that much that the human brain actually finds interesting that's unique about storytelling. It's like storytelling's kind of determined in that fashion in a lot of ways. You can do exciting, unexpected things, but as Fry from Futurama said, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but people don't come to TV to get the new exciting or to be surprised. They want the same thing that they've always been given.
This is true.
And it's true. This is a state of humanity. I always want chocolate chip cookies.
Well, I can't answer your 100 times question because I haven't played it 100 times. So I don't know how repetitive it gets.
Yeah, and it's okay. I probably won't play it that much either. But
but again, just things like I had a friend who played it for a lot. I've just like tested it, but he played it for a much longer time. But like he'd come back to towns that he'd mentioned, and like the same characters were still there, and things like that. Like it remembers like who lives in the villages that it creates and stuff. Like
so did this system have a framework for how to do an RPG, or did they just feed it a ton of RPG information? Like
I think they just it's trained on just basically this massive language model. I think it's GPT-2 or something. It might be GPT-3 now. Basically, you just feed in all of the internet into the training model and it learns to speak English. Essentially.
Okay. What?
So that's how it knows how to form sentences.
Okay.
And then I don't remember how they gave it the data for AI Dungeons. I think they trained it on like a bunch of Dungeon Masters type stories and fantasy books and things like that. I don't know exactly that training set specifically.
Yeah.
So basically it just learns from all these stories that it's read what happens when certain people do certain actions. So even though it will seem amazing, at the same time, it's really just interpolating between all these different stories that we have found.
Man.
That's the coolest thing about deep learning is that like we call it artificial intelligence, but it's really just being able to take the massive amount of data that's out there and just being able to work within the same set of data. Here's the entire English language. Give me another English sentence. And it can figure that out because it's seen the entire English language. It just learned that this is how English is formed. Not because it's, intelligent per se.
Right.
Like it didn't take a class. It just has seen so much flipping data that by now it has essentially learned all the conventions of how sentences should form. Same thing with these amazing applications. Like, I don't know if you saw this one that was really popular recently of like, you take a photo of yourself and it turns you into like an animated character.
Oh, yeah. My wife was showing me that. She was taking pictures of stuff and feeding it all sorts of people. And
yeah, that seemed to blow up on the internet for a while.
Yeah.
But same thing. Like, I don't know the back end per se, but I'm guessing all they did is they took like facial lookalikes because a lot of 3D characters will try and design them off the actual celebrity or self-portraits. A lot of artists do self-portraits. Same idea. You just feed in a bunch of regular human faces. There's a bunch of animated faces. Turn them into each other. In fact, you don't even have to match them. You can just say there's a new method. Actually, not quite that new. About 4 years old now, but that basically said you can do unpaired training. This really cool way of doing unpaired training of just saying, here's a bunch of human faces. Here's a bunch of animated faces. Even if they don't match, you know what anime faces look like. You know what human faces look like. Now learn how to turn them into each other, and it can do that.
That's crazy. That's really crazy because I was always taught the way that it would learn was that you fed it paired data. Like, oh yeah, this is a cat. This is a cat. This is not a cat, and it has to have like two intersecting lines of like. Obviously, you'd have to feed it, but it doesn't have. Oh, that's crazy. That's really crazy.
Yeah, because what they realized is basically what they could do is it's called a cycle. And in fact, I'll just put this in the show notes for anyone that's interested. They call it cycle GAN. And the idea is that, because yes, you're right. Generally, the idea is pairs, question, answer, face, animated face, right? Take this, turn it into that. And this is what it looks like and match the same process.
Right.
But what you can do is just, if you have unpaired data, the one in the paper is horses and zebras. I want to turn my horses into zebras and my zebras into horses. So it needs to learn to basically put stripes on horses and take stripes off of horses or of zebras, right?
Yeah.
So you obviously don't have pairs of here's a horse and here's the zebra version of that horse.
Right, because that's what we want the machine to do already. Yeah, okay.
Right. So, but all you have to do is say, I want you to be able to take my horse, turn it into a zebra, but then take that zebra, turn it back into the horse, and those should match.
Okay.
My horse to zebra concatenated with my zebra to horse functions should return the same image. And that's actually what you train against.
Right. And then you feed it a bunch of images of zebra.
And tell it to do the opposite in the other direction. My zebra to horse compounded with my horse to zebra
function
should give me back the zebra. And in that process, it learns the function.
This is crazy. So with enough data, an AGI is totally like within the realm of possibility then, yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
Or does it not? Because it feels like if you just feed it, like, say you just take a human lifespan and you just feed it 1,000,000 human lifespans, or 100,000 or 10,000, I don't even know how many you need, 1,000 even. Could it then replicate a human? Like,
so for sake of time, I'm just going to say theoretically, yes.
okay,
But to put your worries,
Skynet.
to calm your troubled mind, I will say we're still really far away from that.
Yeah, okay. That's what I figured.
We do have a lot of methods, though, that are showing that, like this, that you're right. Like, we won't need just the entire world in paired data,
Yeah.
We'll be able to give them the information, and they'll be able to kind of self-learn on a lot of things. So
weird.
And even though a lot of these things still seem crazy, it's still so specific.
Yeah.
It's still so centralized to one task, and being able to generate an English sentence is one thing. Being able to take that English sentence, know the meaning of it, and be able to like replicate that action yourself, or like find a video. Again, even then, it's just like we have all these specialized networks that might be able to do that one thing.
Yeah.
But having a one network that can
do all the things,
think the way a human does, is still just really far away.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. So the solution is artificial intelligence once again. Those darn AIs, they're gonna solve all our problems, I think.
And create a whole bunch of new ones.
Yeah.
We're solving the immediate problem.
Right.
I say that. We're solving the immediate problem. Someone else can solve the problem after that.
Right.
So.
Well, we'll do an episode about the new problems that occur. That's our whole job. It would put us out of work if they didn't create more problems. I mean, imagine if we had a solution that didn't create problems. Then what would we do, David? We'd do nothing. Well,
it's true.
I'd probably still make a podcast, but.
All right. Well, the users. A user. Can you tell I'm a computer scientist?
Yep.
All right. The listeners have heard us talk very much in detail about the Space Center, and I did not realize how long we talked about that, but it's good stuff. Interesting stuff to think about. And again, you should give it a try, dear listener, if you had the chance to go to the Space Center.
Yes, you should. It's fun.
So after talking about that very deep and complex topic, we're going to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted to finish up.
Okay.
All right, let's be honest. It was still lighthearted, but this is even more lighthearted.
Yes.
Can be more infuriating.
Yeah. Something that'll make me immediately grumpy. I like that.
This is the one that will allow Aaron to just like tip over this table in his kitchen and just start punching things because it makes him so mad.
Yes, exactly.
Although we'll see if it's for opposite reasons or not. But we'll find out. Okay, so here's the dilemma. You're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix, and you want to obviously watch the intro because it's one of the best intros to any show ever. It's one of the best shows ever.
Correct.
But by default, if you're watching it, it highlights the skip intro button. So that if you press any button, like you want to pause to wait for your wife to come in the room so you can start the episode or something, right? If you try to pause, it won't pause. It'll actually skip the intro.
No, really?
Which is infuriating because I want to watch the intro. In fact, I almost always want to watch the intro, even if I'm watching like any show, even if I'm watching multiple in a row. I love watching the intro in between each one.
Interesting.
I don't know why. I just want to like, it just gets me in the mood again to like keep watching.
Okay.
So like the only exception is I don't know if you've watched the series of Unfortunate Events.
I only watched a couple episodes. I think I watched 2 episodes. Didn't last long.
I really enjoyed that book as a kid, so I actually ended up watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the show is really well done, but the intro song is just really annoying. It's like it's supposed to be like that's kind of the point of the show. It's, you know,
Okay, yeah.
the unfortunate events and the guy singing poorly, and it's all, you know, very dreary and
Right.
dismal, you know.
Right.
So that intro I did want to skip, but most of the time I don't want to skip the intro for any show. Like it for some reason it just like sets my mind into the show. But if I'm ever like pausing for my wife to get into the room or something, or I just want to go get a drink before the next episode starts, I always have the instinct of pressing the pause button, and it jumps past the intro. I'm like, no, why do you even have that button? And why do you highlight it by default? I want to watch the dang intro, please.
Oh, David. Oh, David. We do feel differently about this.
That's what my concern was. So what are your thoughts on this matter?
So, I totally agree that it's ridiculous that you don't have the opportunity to pause it at the beginning and to just watch the intro like you want to do. I think you should have that option. We've done little if we just take away choices, right? That's not the point. The point is not to take away our choices, it's to give us more options. And to take away your ability to not watch the intro. I mean, to watch the intro is unacceptable.
Right.
I will fight for the opportunity for you to watch the intro. But do you really watch the intro on every show?
I do.
David.
I don't know why. It's for the, I don't know, it just like gets me in the mindset that I'm watching the show.
Okay.
That I'm adjusting from my current life, and now I'm imbued in the show.
But what about if you just watched an episode of the show?
I think this might also be one of the things is I don't binge watch a whole lot.
Oh, I see. If you only watch one episode at a time, yeah, I can see. Okay, yeah.
But I mean, I'll watch 2 episodes now and then, and I'll still go in between. I've done like 3 or 4 on Avatar in a row.
Right, yeah. Okay. That answers the question of why would you do this to yourself a little bit more clearly? Because then it would get you into it. Like I can see that. My wife and I watch a couple of shows quite a lot. Like you could say we binge watch them regularly.
Right.
And so hearing the same intro song over and over and over again in the same day after you just heard it over and over again in the day before is mind-numbingly upsetting. It is just like, and it's not like an in your face kind of thing. It's like oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this. You just over time your brain just starts to resent the sounds that the TV's making and the pictures you have to look at again and again and again.
I think another problem of this too is that you probably watch a lot more comedy than I do. I don't know if that's the case or not, but
we binge watch comedy.
I feel like comedy shows have a lot more annoying intros.
That's fair.
Than like the story-driven series. That's almost always what I watch is like a continuous story TV show.
That's interesting.
And so in that case, it's more like I'm getting back into the investigative story of whatever I'm watching, right?
Right.
Whereas like, yeah, if I'm watching like, I don't know, SpongeBob, I don't want to hear the Who Lives in a Pineapple Under the Sea song.
Oh, man.
Every episode I watch.
Oh, man.
Not that I watch that anymore, but I can see that. If it's more of just like a lighthearted, silly song at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know what shows you're watching. Do you find that to be the case, or are they more story driven?
It depends. For the story driven, it depends on how much we're watching at a time. Because I agree. I have one show that I like to watch. I don't binge watch it a ton. And when I do, I usually like to listen to the first intro. But then if I'm watching a bunch of episodes in a row, I will skip the intros on all the other episodes. Just the first one is acceptable, because I agree it does kind of pull you into it, and it's part of the experience. And a lot of times the music and the visuals are very interesting and very fun and engaging, but chaos ensues when you just watch the same intro over and over again. And so I think it is a quantity issue, though. I do agree. I think it's a quantity issue. You would love you would love a different skip intro button that I have encountered lately.
Oh yeah.
I've been watching Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the animated show recently.
Is that on Disney Plus?
It is on Disney Plus, yep. And
nice.
It's very everyone's like, oh my gosh, it was so good. They're lying. The last 3 seasons are what's good.
Right.
The first 3 are like a kid's show.
Right.
And stupid and ridiculous. So, but that's beside the point. So
it hasn't aged well. Let's put it that way.
It has not. Yeah.
Like a lot of prequel Star Wars.
Yo. Why did all their stuff walk? Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I get it. I have lots of complaints. That's for a different time. But the show has a very short intro. It's like a pared down version of the Star Wars intro with the Star Wars thing floating off into the back, but not the words. Get rid of all the paragraphs of text that every Star Wars film starts with.
Right.
And it just like jumps into it. So it's probably only 20 to 30, maybe not even that, 15 to 30 seconds long. And the skip intro button pops up every time. And I frequently press the skip intro button because I would like to skip the intro. I have heard the same 10 seconds of this song so many times,
right?
And it's not an interesting song. It's kind of dumb, and it's not even that good. Whatever. So I go to press this button, right? And it skips it back to the beginning because the intro is so short. It restarts the intro when you press the button. So you'll get 10 seconds in, press the button, and then you have to rewatch that 10 seconds again. Just in case you weren't in the mood enough, just in case you weren't prepared for the next part. And it makes me so mad, David. It makes me so mad. It is just, It's just like, why did you even put the button on there? Why did you even put the button on if it wasn't going to skip me past all the nonsense and put me right into the show? Like, why isn't it there? And it's not. And the thing that's hilarious is that it's not that much nonsense. It's only a few seconds, and yet it still irks.
I feel like there's another Star Wars like show I was watching where again it was like a 5-second. Oh, it was The Mandalorian. That's what it was.
Oh yeah,
because The Mandalorian it will start with a first cutscene type thing. Then it will do the Mandalorian logo.
Right.
And do that like weird like didgeridoo type instrument,
whatever it is.
But it's literally like 5 seconds long.
Right.
And I'm like, why does that skip intro button even exist? Like, you're not gonna be able to press it before you realize that it's there. Like,
right.
There really is no long intro there. It just moves straight to the next part. It's especially if there's no like previously on Mandalorian or whatever. Like it literally is just Mandalorian. Now
and
we're
then
starting,
it's done. Right, and then it's the show, which is how it's supposed to be. But that's okay. That's okay. That's a different issue.
Yeah, but it just seemed funny. That's like, why did you even bother to put the button? Like,
exactly.
Because you can't handle 3 seconds of the text on the screen.
Anyway, that's a frustrating thing, and the solution to that is to get rid of the dang button. It shouldn't be there. If it's not going to do its job, I desperately need that button to do its job. It needs to take me very near the very beginning of the episode. Within 3 seconds of the beginning of the episode.
Right.
Is how close it should be. No further back than that.
Well, another one that makes me laugh is, are you familiar with the TV show Bluey?
Oh my gosh, am I familiar with the TV show Bluey? Yeah, dude. I don't even have kids and we watch it. Like
I just appreciate what my brother said about it. He has 2 kids and he said Bluey is my favorite TV show. Not my favorite TV show to watch with my kids. No. My favorite TV show.
Yeah. Dude, there was have you watched season 2 yet?
Yeah, we're starting on it.
Oh my gosh, have you passed episode 9?
Yes, we kind of see it. My wife and I take turns watching it with our daughter.
Oh, I see.
I may or may not have seen an episode if you're referring to it.
It's okay. One of the new episodes, and my wife is not sure which episode it is, but one of the new episodes absolutely killed us.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like I was a mess after watching it because it was so like good and so wholesome and emotionally. It made
Like
me so
teary-eyed.
vulnerable, and yeah, it was really bad. And so yeah, watch out for that. It'll make you cry. It'll make you cry bad.
I was gonna say I have gone teary-eyed a few times on that show because it's just so good, and it's Australian, which makes it even better.
Yeah, well, yeah. I love that they're dogs, but then they're like sometimes they're like actually dogs. Like they'll all of a sudden be a dog all of a sudden for a second. You're like, what?
My favorite episode in the first season is the asparagus one, where he says, "Why do we have manners?" And he says, "Because we're not animals." It's just like really clever dialogue.
Yeah.
Because they literally are animals.
Yeah, I love that show. It's everything wholesome you need in your life.
Right. My wife actually got me a bandit doll to put on my computer desk
that's
for
amazing.
Father's Day.
That's amazing. Oh, that's so
Anyways,
great.
we probably could spend a whole nother episode on why Bluey is so much better than for kids TV shows. It's way better to watch as an adult by like a million miles.
It's one of the greatest TV shows ever made. It is truly a work of art, and I love it.
Well, and it just feels it feels so many levels of understanding at the same time. That's why it's so cool.
Yes, exactly. And like I never leave the episode feeling like I was treated like a child, but also I never leave an episode feeling crappy. I don't know, like bad. I always
like you want to just go play with some toys for a little bit and eat ice cream or just
I always
experience childhood again.
I always have this like uplifted feeling of like I need to be a good person. I need to be a good person, and I always left with that feeling after watching that show, and I love it.
We could talk about that for a long time, but the reason I bring it up is if any show doesn't need a skip intro button, it's Bluey. Because that dance they do at the beginning, like our little daughter, she's only 1. She can't even speak. But every time that comes up, she starts dancing with them. And it's absolutely adorable. So it's like, why in the world, every kid, even like my nieces and nephews, like they'll do the same thing. They hear the song, they start dancing with them. Like every kid in the world loves that sound. And they know that Bluey's coming on and they all get excited. So like, why in the world would you skip the intro for that show?
I couldn't agree more, my friend. One time my wife skipped the intro and I was like, no, don't skip the intro. I want to watch it. It is like, it's like enchanting and fun and interesting, and it doesn't grind. Like, I don't know. I've watched a bunch of it and it doesn't grind on my ears yet, and
it's just the right length.
Yeah. And it's delightful. It's just delightful. So I agree 100%. Get rid of the skip intro button for Bluey.
Right. Well, this leads into my solution.
Okay.
This is all I want.
Okay.
If you simply, because it's obviously very clear, skipping intros is a pattern, right? We just talked about this. I don't skip intros. You often skip intros. And it's really just based on the show. So all we need is 3 simple settings per show.
Okay.
Just like where you go up and change the captions or something. Just for each show, you can also select skip the intro always, skip the intro, but not the first time, or show intro first time only, right? In a binge watch.
Right.
Or don't skip intro. That's all you need. Those 3 settings should satisfy every logical behavior I can think of. I don't know people that skip the intro on the first time they watch, but then on the second time they do watch the intro, right? Or sometimes they watch a show and they want to skip the intro, but other times they're watching a show they don't want to skip. No one behaves like that. Right. Why are we making this a button you have to press every single time if you want to do it?
Right. No, I would take it one step further.
Okay.
They should know, based on your previous behavior, which setting you wanted.
Right.
Anyway, it should be an adaptive system. That's what I think.
It just says, we set the default to this for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Here's how you can change it. If you want to change it, you can change it. We're open to ideas, but based on the way you watch this show, this is what we think.
Right.
Solutions. I got solutions. This is great. This is easy.
I just don't know why it's so hard to incorporate that.
I agree. That would be a really simple way to solve the problem. And then, you know what? They could even keep leaving the skip intro button on there anyway.
Right.
As long as the pause button still works without the skip intro button.
And I was kind of being grumpy about it because all you have to do is press like down to get out of the skip intro button to pause. But it's just annoying to like mentally process that.
Yeah, but that's 100% increase in the number of steps you have to take to pause the show. That's unacceptable, David. Usually you can just press the button.
Right. Or even just the fourth option of those three options is just, I want to do it myself every single time. If you're a crazy person that somehow wants to skip intros every time based on your random behavior.
You could have a mix it up for me option too. We could have 4 options.
Mix it up.
Keep it interesting.
I'm feeling lucky.
I'm feeling lucky. Your I'm feeling lucky intro button. David, that's an even better idea. Because instead, you know how Google search it has the search button or the I'm feeling lucky button.
Mm-hmm.
What if we just replace? You have the skip intro button, or you can have you can change one setting, and then it's the I'm feeling lucky button instead of the skip intro button. Sometimes you press it and it doesn't skip the intro, and sometimes you press it and it does. That's a great solution for those crazy people who would do that to themselves.
That are trying to get their kicks on trying to know whether or not they're going to watch the intro today.
Right, exactly. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
Yeah, I mean, usually our solutions are generally over the top. Things that may or may not happen in the next 100 years or so.
That's true.
Kind of crazy.
That's true.
But this is one where I'm definitely feel like this is a real solution that could easily be implemented.
Yeah.
That we can just go to companies and say, why are you not doing this?
Right.
We as a general populace would be forever grateful if you would do this simple change in your setup of your system.
I just want to feel lucky. Okay. That's all I want, companies. It's not that hard.
You can start placing bets with your friends on whether or not the intro is going to get skipped or not.
Exactly. It turns into an eating/drinking game. Like, it's great.
That kind of turns the show a different direction. Every episode of Bluey, you have to press the I'm feeling lucky button. The intro gets skipped. You have to do a truth or dare or something.
See, that one's easy because if it skips the Bluey intro, the bad thing that happens, instead of having to play a game or eat a food that's bad or get super drunk, which I guess is something that people do, instead of any of those things, really you just get the disappointment of your child because you skip the intro, man. You get the internal disappointment of like, I don't get to watch the intro.
Punishment. That's the worst effect of the bet.
I know. It would make life interesting. That's what the I'm feeling lucky button is for.
I thought you were going to say whatever negative thing that you get challenged to do would be balanced out by the good wholesomeness of Bluey that you're watching while you're doing it.
Yeah. No.
You may have to have eaten 10 hot dogs and you feel terrible about yourself, but
at least you get to watch Bluey.
You got to watch Bluey take a hurt bird to the hospital, to the vet.
Right.
And you feel better about humanity.
It's actually crazy though, because Bluey episodes are only 10 minutes long in between those intros. And I still don't get bored of it. It's still good every time.
I think it's even 8. I think that's...
Oh man, it's like no time at all. Dang.
But again, crazy. It's like the perfect length for every episode.
I watch it every time. I may have skipped it once or twice, but I basically watch it. We need more Bluey in the world. That's what we need. If every intro we could just better than I'm feeling lucky, we just replace every TV intro with Bluey's TV intro.
I like that. Like, I could immediately tell what you just thought, and it was just, it's so obvious. It's such an obvious solution.
It is the only proper, it's the only intro I'm not bored of. Every other intro I've gotten bored of, but that one I have not. And so, well, I guess the Loki intro I haven't seen it enough times to get bored of it. It's kind of long, but it's
That
I
one's
like
kind of
it.
cool.
Yeah, I like the music in it. It's
I like
very
the style.
yeah, it's very very good. We still got to watch the new Wednesday episode. Anyway, that's beside the point.
On this next episode of True Crime, see what happens. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and see, then you'd be feeling disappointment, and then like, you're getting ready to press the skip intro button, and all of a sudden it turns into Bluey. Who would be sad? No one would be sad.
It's brilliant. I might just hack my computer to do that for me.
Yes.
It'll skip the real intro, then jump to the Bluey episode and play that intro, and come back to the show. And
we could start just putting the Bluey intro for anything. Like, instead of having like an opening speaker, or instead of having opening credits, or instead of having advertisements.
Can you imagine if you went into the movie theater and that was just playing while you're waiting for the show to start? It'd be amazing.
Oh man. If it was longer, it'd have to be a longer song.
Right.
I think if I had to listen to it on repeat, I'd get bored. But if it was like a full big song, yeah, man.
Instead of emergency exits, and the theater has its own commercial, like, forget all that. We know where the emergency exits are, etc. Just play the Bluey theme song so y'all can get ready and feel good about being at the movie theater, and then you can start the show.
Right, yeah. Before pre-flight, it should be the Bluey intro. Yeah.
Australia should make a Bluey pre-flight video that you watch.
They should.
That would be amazing.
That is a great idea. That would bring happiness to a lot of people flying on planes. That would bring a lot of happiness.
I know New Zealand's done The Hobbit, so surely Australia can do Bluey. So.
Bluey, yeah. Well, it's a worldwide sensation as far as I can tell. Bluey's hot. It's the hot thing right now. Like, forget whatever Disney is doing. Bluey, well, I guess
Disney owns it now, but
is the way that I'm getting Bluey, so never mind. Forget whatever other shows they have in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's Bluey everywhere. I can talk to almost anyone about Bluey, and I can recommend it to anyone.
Well, the crazy thing is it's not one of those shows, it's not advertised. It's not like Loki and all the Marvel stuff that are constantly on news articles online and stuff.
Right.
Like, everyone just loves it so much that, like, your friend tells your friend who tells your friend, and, like, just 7 people down the line, the entire population knows about this show because everyone who sees it just loves it so much.
Right. I mean, I tell everyone I meet about Bluey. I always ask. I'm like, oh, have you guys seen Bluey yet? And you guys up to date with the Bluey episodes? And usually they're like, no. I'm like, you should watch it then. Usually I sit them down and I force them to watch it. No, I don't do that. But I would if I could.
Really, Bluey is the way we save the world.
That's
more Bluey in the world is the only way we're going to save the world.
Australia beat us to it. Just...
Darn Aussies.
They've done all the hard work, and we didn't even know that's what we wanted. They probably listened to the podcast and they were probably like, you know what these guys need? They need some Bluey in their lives. and then that's how it came to be. They're like, man, we can't solve all these other problems because they're too expensive, but we can do Bluey. Bluey is a good solution.
Here we are just discussing and constantly arguing ways to save the world, and Australia's like, nah, we'll solve them all at the same time. Here you go. We got it. Boom.
Perfect.
I really feel bad for any listener that's listening that has not watched Bluey at this point. Hopefully it's clear that you need to go watch it right now.
Yeah.
If you have not, based on how long we said, oh, we're not going to talk about Bluey, and then we still kept talking about Bluey because that's how much we love it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to talk about because it's just go watch it, and then you can tell us what you think, and you can tell us if we're overhyping it. But I don't know, man.
Aaron's never been known to overhype anything.
Never. I never overhype anything.
But feel comfort because I actually am known to not overhype things. So
that's
so use me as your basis if you're not quite sure. And don't skip the intro.
Don't skip the intro. It's the best part. It's maybe the best part of the episode, except for that other episode that made me cry a little bit.
Have you gone to the point that you like analyze their dance moves?
Oh yeah,
I've determined Bingo's the best dancer in the group.
that kid's why you don't negotiate with terrorists. 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 Negotiate with terrorists.